Hey, this is Nick, aka The Weiler, here for the Deadly Operative Grunts show.
The Deadly Operative Grunt Show! Oh, yeah.
Alright, today we're going to be talking Nintendo, and more Nintendo. So we'll talk about our favorite Nintendo games and why. And then obviously the Nintendo Switch will be coming out tomorrow by the time this comes out. So we're going to talk about it, we're going to talk about its predecessors, everything. But first, it's time for your post-week news. Let's get pwned. Alright, so Shadow of Mordor 2 has been leaked thanks to Target. And most likely Russia, but that's not the point. I'm super excited for this because the first Shadow of Mordor won a lot of Game of the Year awards, and that totally deserved it. Honestly, as long as it keeps the Nemesis system and it gives me a new area to explore, and like obviously new things, new abilities, and like that's all I need. Like the story, it was there, and Gollum was there. I think there was a dwarf, and hold on, I got this. There's a Rancor, I think. Oh, that's not what it's called. Anyways, the story was there, and that's all that really matters. I mean, it was just a really fun game, going around and, getting your own worst enemy. Not only that, but sometimes you would kill them, and then they would come back, and they would remember you, and then they would always, comment on how you killed them. So it's like, oh, last time you burned me, it's not gonna happen again. And so then you cut their head off. And so, but it was really fun. I'm really excited for the second one. And also, Capcom dug deep to get a second trademark for Deep Down. And this was kind of like a Dark Souls-esque game. It was actually announced way back before the PlayStation 4 even came out. And then it's kind of been just stuck in limbo for a while. It looked cool just from what they showed, but the really interesting thing about it is that it's kind of like Dark Souls, but it's set in like a post-apocalyptic world. So it kind of like almost, Horizon Zero Dawns, where it goes so far forward, it kind of like goes back in time at the same time. And a lot of the stuff will be procedurally generated. So, I like a lot of what Capcom does, and now without Scalebound, hopefully maybe they can just focus in on Deep Down. They can dig deep, and they can get it done. The new Han Solo, A Star Wars Story, is starting filming. So this should be pretty cool. Just from their cast, I'm excited to see it. The main guy who's playing Han Solo, I haven't really seen him in a lot, but that doesn't mean anything. The girl who played Rey, you didn't see her in a lot. And obviously the guy who played Finn, he's in 2 movies now. So I'm not really worried about that. Plus they have Donald Glover playing as the young Lando Calrissian. Woody Harrelson's going to be in it. I don't even know what he's going to do, but it's Woody Harrelson. So that's going to be really cool. Not much else happened this week, so that's it for your post-week news. Let's go on to a Spitfire review of Ghost Recon Wildlands Beta. Alright, so I'm going to do a little Spitfire review for you. If you don't know, that's just where I kind of ramble off really quickly instead of a really long format. So Ghost Recon Wildlands, I'm kind of lukewarm at it right now. I did enjoy it for the first 2 hours, and then it kind of dawned on me that I'm doing the same stuff over and over again, but in different locations. And so it was still fun, and a lot of your entertainment is going to come from taking on a situation in as many ways as you can. So even though you're killing a person and then getting the heck out of there, you're extracting a person, you're blowing something up, you do that a lot But what's going to be fun is playing with your friends, trying to find new ways to do it. And that's what's going to bring you joy in this game. I don't really think playing by yourself is the best way to go. You can play by yourself. And actually, playing by myself, it was kind of cool because the AI kind of acted almost like, if you have the drone go bird's eye view, it almost feels like an RTS because you can make them move wherever you want, and then you do a sync shot, and then you can have them open fire or something. So it almost kind of feels like a little RTS just by doing it that way. And they're definitely competent enough for AI, obviously, but still what really makes it fun is going in with your buddies, trying to go as stealthy as possible, and then like at the last seconds, the shit hits the fan and you guys are just booking it out of there. But unfortunately, my chief concern of it, like I said last week, was the repetitiveness of it, and it is very repetitive. Some of the side missions are you either steal a helicopter or you steal a plane. You either steal a truck full of food or a truck full of gas. I mean, and that's just a couple of the examples. One of my favorite side missions is you breach a building and then just kill everybody inside, and you have a certain amount of time to do it, and then you have to hack a console before the time runs out. And that's kind of cool. It adds a little bit of tension. But unfortunately for me, there wasn't enough variety to really keep me interested. So I think I'm going to award this a rent. And that's just because I really feel like you have to try it out for yourself and try to play with somebody have them rent it too or something like that, or you guys, pass the controller around something. But I can't go any higher than rent because it didn't grip me as much as I really wanted to. I'm going to rent it myself because Ubisoft just came out with For Honor, and even though they had a beta 2 days before it came out, they actually launched with a lot of server issues. And so I'm kind of going to make sure that the same doesn't happen for Wildlands. So that's my recommendation. I think you should rent it. I think it's fun. I think it has a lot of gun choices, vehicle choices. It's a huge open world, but unless you try it out for yourself and you give it a chance, I can't go any higher than rent. So that's my thoughts on Wildlands. Up next, we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch, so stay tuned for that.
Hi, this is Nick from the Deadly Operative Grunts show. Are you or someone you love a nerd? There are many warning signs that you can look out for. Are they really good at math or science? Do they celebrate strange holidays like May the 4th, Winter Eansmas, or Hobbit Day? Do they have heated discussions about the difference between a light year and a parsec? Do they claim to catch invisible creatures by going outside and staring at their phones? Do they often solemnly swear that they're up to no good? Or do they answer every question with the number 42? All these might point to you or your loved one being a nerd. At Repop Gifts, they're here to help. With a wide variety of items and a selection of one-of-a-kind works of art, you won't want to leave. Need to try something on? Then use their wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey changing room. Great for birthdays, holidays, or just to add to your collection. Repop Gifts near the corner of 31st and State.
Themed episode today, and with me today is
Ian, the historic nerd.
Okay, and I haven't had you on for a while, and I'm like, what's perfect for him? Nintendo. It's old, you know a lot about history, so you can kind of dig deep with me, and we can talk about Nintendo. So first, let's kind of start off with the console itself. Obviously, we're getting a Wii U Plus. Because now we can actually take it outside. It's going to be a little bit more powerful, but less powerful than the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. It's going to run at 40% less if it's undocked. Then when it's docked, it can get overclocked. And then it's like, oh, then we can go up to 1080. And it's not launching with a lot of games. So give me your synopsis of what you think about this in general.
This is another example of Nintendo. Like, if you look at the industry now, there's a complete lack of innovation, with the exception of Nintendo. The one thing you can respect them for doing is the fact that they, instead of being limited to the more traditional console TV dynamic, Nintendo has strived to kind of change that to where they're trying to approach it with how can they attract the widest possible audience that isn't already hardcore gamers. So you can at least respect Nintendo for trying something different in that regard. I think it's a bit of a risk, like a potentially hundreds of $1 million risk.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting what they're doing there. As far as, I've had people come and talk to me about this and say, oh, Nintendo's trying to attract the hardcore gamer. Just look at the ads they were putting out where they were showing people playing Splatoon competitively.
Yeah, and then like Karen comes over.
Yeah, I'm like, no, that's really not what they're going for, because it's Nintendo historically, like at least now.
And it's Splatoon.
It's Splatoon. I can't imagine anyone really playing competitive leagues of that. So it's not what Nintendo's going for. They're going for the more casual market in the sense that you can take this with you on trips, fly. I think they clocked the battery now at, I think, 2.5 hours is what you can get out of the tablet.
Yeah, I think they were saying that, especially for Zelda. There are other games, I'm assuming like the more like downloadable games, you might be able to get more.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe like the Super Nintendo games, you might be able to get like 6 hours out of those. But
yeah, because like with the screen by itself, without being in the dock, you're at 720p when you're just out in the wild.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, true.
So you're playing at a lower HD quality. So yeah, you could definitely get more out of it, especially if you're playing more basic games that have more black in them, which probably, if it's an LED-based screen, it won't be as much energy intensive. So there's a lot of potential they have there. I guess I really just don't know where they're going with this, because the Wii U was such a weird system when they released it, and then the mistake they made with the Wii U was attaching U on the end of Wii.
Right.
And people, and of course this came out during the height of the peripheral games, when you had like the Wii Fit, some other weird crap with Wii in the name. So a lot of people just ended up thinking the Wii U was just a peripheral add-on for the Wii. So like, why do I want to spend more money on my Wii? And you had all that crap. Then you had the Kinect that came out, and people were just done with peripherals at that point in time.
Yeah.
And so the Wii U just didn't quite fit anywhere in the next generation of console gaming. And not to mention the fact that a lot of the games became overly convoluted, and no third parties wanted to make games for it because it was so odd. But the nice thing about where Nintendo has historically done insanely well has been the handheld market. Like, literally, there's no other company that's even come close to having as much success as them.
Yeah, I think the DS is upwards of like 130 million.
Yeah, a million units,
Yeah.
I think the PSP maybe broke 30.
Yeah, 30, 35, something like that.
Something around there, yeah. So like and even the Game Gear only broke 10 million in the 90s. So it was kind of like...
Game Gear?
Yeah, I think the Atari Lynx was like 200,000. But earlier episode, if you ever want to go learn about that. But yeah, so Nintendo historically, like, no one can even touch them in the mobile market because of how they've approached it and how they've dominated and how they've released relatively innovative and interesting products for people to use.
Right.
So this by and large is Nintendo branching out into a market they already quite understand, in the sense that they're using tech they already have, in the sense that it's a tablet, so it's a small compact device that they engineered themselves, so they understand what the system's needs and requirements are going to be. So it's a very mobile intensive system, so they're trying something different, because Nintendo historically, it's always been about a unique experience. It hasn't been about, because I mean, you reached a point with Nintendo and Sega where the games were different similar, but with like different in the respect of like one had more colors or better sound, vice versa.
Of course.
So you had kind of this like rivalry there. But Nintendo, towards after the N64, moving into the GameCube and then beyond that, branched out in the sense that if they make the game experience a more unique thing to the individual, it'll make it more of a requirement for a family to have it, because it goes beyond just being a gamer thing.
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
it extends it into the living room, like grandma, grandparents. So like the Wii itself sold over 100-something million units,
Right.
and a lot of that was like to retirement homes and things like that. So
True.
people were playing the crap out of it. So this one, you have an entirely new potential market in the sense that it is a full-blown console that can play a wide variety of games in a tablet environment. I mean, like you had things like not the NVIDIA Shield, but you had other gaming tablets available that existed that had like analog joysticks on them, but they were never mainstream because people didn't really know about them, and they weren't. And not to mention, tablet technology has come a really long way in the last 5 to 6 years.
Right, and the NVIDIA Shield, that would have been like upwards of like 800 to 1,000, right?
I don't think it was that much,
oh, okay.
but it was one of those things where literally it was. Because like a lot of the NVIDIA Shield stuff was streaming based, so you could stream the games from your PC to your Shield device. So it was a more complex thing. So a lot of people who weren't more hardcore gamers, again, wouldn't get into it because it was a more advanced system than what they were ready to use.
Mm-hmm.
So already exclusionary there. But so Nintendo going with the thing where it's just ready to go out of the box as a gaming tablet that you can change the controllers out of.
Yeah. That's definitely what's the most interesting is the fact, and especially during their most recent conference, the one that just went so terribly wrong with the unfortunate like translation issues and everything. But regardless of that, what makes it the most intriguing is having an actual console experience on the go, because that's what Vita tried. Vita tried to corner that market, and I think there's plenty of Vita fans out there that believe that this is basically like the PlayStation 3, or but you can take it on the go. You can remote play PlayStation 4 games on the go, which is almost what the PSP was supposed to do with the PlayStation 3, but they just never could get it to work. And so now they're taking that kind of idea, but making it completely on the go. But then what I think that they did is that during their newest press conference, they kind of muddled up the marketing because they referred to it as a console so much, almost like they were trying to ignore the fact that, oh yes, you can take it on the go. And I think that has something to do with the 2.5 hours and the fact that it is 40% less than if you'd have it docked. So it's like they were really trying to hit home the fact that, hey, you can play this at home. And I don't know if that was just a marketing choice so that people didn't think it was like the 3D or the 4DS or something.
Yeah, that makes actually a lot of sense, because already by making it a mobile console, they're already alienating a player base that has been used to Nintendo consoles being at home in that experience. So they've already alienated. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but they've already alienated in the sense that people potentially, because this is a relatively new idea and concept to do with a gaming console, they have to make sure that people understand what it is this round. Because
especially with the Wii U, what you were saying, people were confused. Even I, a hardcore gamer who researches this kind of stuff.
Even me. So I mean,
I was completely confused. I'm like, oh, it's just an add-on, and you actually had to read an article, which who does that nowadays? I wanted it in a YouTube video.
Well, I even went to PAX and they were showing off the Wii U.
Oh yeah.
And I was sitting there, I'm like, wait, so is this just something you buy? Because the Wii U games weren't necessarily even that graphically more impressive to me.
Didn't they just jump from like 480 to 720?
I thought it had 1080p output, but even I haven't owned a Wii U just because it didn't interest me in that regard. Like I played some of the games, I'm like, these are a convoluted mess. So it wasn't something I wanted to get into. So Nintendo really has to cover their bases in how they market this to people, so they know that if it is a home console, they can appeal to people that want to play it at home as a console, or people who are going to be on the go. Like I think if this had been around when my family was doing car trips all the time, it would have sold like fucking gangbusters. Pardon my language. So it would have been just amazing in that regard. What we had was like a Game Boy that we had to share between three brothers. So it was just a fist fight every couple of miles.
We had a Game Gear. Yeah.
So we had a Game Boy is what we had, but I would have loved a Game Gear because that was like from the future.
Yeah, I know. It was like a TV in your hand. That thing was like what, like that, right?
Yeah, like that thing.
Right.
Yeah, it was awesome. So they really have to be careful about that, because I mean, like if you look at past events where you had really innovative, powerful consoles that failed, it was often because of marketing.
Yes.
And a really good example of this would be, if you probably don't remember this one, but the TurboGrafx, which was a really powerful gaming system released around the time of the Genesis. And it was like an 8-bit system with a 16-bit potential architecture. So not really a 16-bit, but it had better graphics than the NES. And it was released by NEC, a gigantic freaking telecommunication company that deals with fabricating graphics chips, all kinds of stuff. So literally limitless resources in what they could have poured into this. But they marketed it so terribly that it just failed miserably everywhere.
Yeah.
Because they didn't take the approach to make the market understand what this was and why it was innovative and why you might want to play it or experience it. So Nintendo, usually, because Nintendo's been on the winning side of a lot of things before, with the exception of the Wii, Virtual Boy. They really pretty much have had a pretty good winning streak throughout their, because they were founded in 1889, so they've been around for a hell of a long time.
Yeah.
So they have pretty good winning streaks throughout their history. So they have to make really damn sure with this thing that people understand it's for the go and can be at home, because it's just a relatively new, innovative idea. And I'm just circling back to this because it's different and people might be shied away from it because of that. Yeah. But
going off of what you said before about the whole commercial being, the 20-something-year-olds and stuff like that, I feel like that'd be a good thing if you had games confirmed that 20-something-year-olds actually want to play. Not to say that people don't want to play Mario, because everybody loves Mario, and that is why you buy a Nintendo game. But the casual person, the person who's just going to see it on the shelf and go, oh, what's this? Oh, this looks cool. I'm going to buy it on impulse because I have my tax returns. Something like that. So I think that's who they were trying to market towards. They're like, oh, this isn't for kids. Like, admittedly, seeing commercials nowadays for the Wii and how there's grandpa and there's little, 2-year-old and they're all playing tennis together. Like, it looks fun, but then to somebody who actually wants to play, like, real games, like real deep integrated games, you see that and you're like, oh, that's for old people?
Well, I guess because the Wii, it really suffered from the sense that it wasn't, the gaming experience was different enough that it wasn't quite what you were used to.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they released like the classic controller, so you didn't have to fully depend on the motion controls, which ultimately just made you want to just kill yourself every once in a while.
Or throw it into the TV.
Or literally, it's like, I'm done with you. And the funny thing was, like, that was pretty innovative because a lot of companies followed suit, like freaking Xbox with the Kinect, where you had the motion controls that were
and
just
then the
garbage.
PlayStation.
And then you played Lair, and it literally caused, like, probably people to have spousal fights in their living rooms about how terrible the dragon controlled. So yeah, it comes from that universe. If it was innovative for that, and this one, they really have to focus on pushing it forward. Because, I mean, like, the PS Vita was, like, Sony. They literally have limitless money to throw behind these things because of their freaking technological empire with TVs, Blu-ray, CD players, all that. So they have all these resources they can throw behind it. But, again, the PS Vita failed because their marketing was bad. Yeah. Even though people, like, were, oh, it's a great idea. But they didn't make a captivating enough argument with their marketing to make people understand what a great experience this would be and why it beats out the DS.
Right.
But Nintendo, because they've always been so damn good at the mobile market, has just captivated people forever. And ultimately, a lot of the mobile stuff really appeals to children. And so Nintendo, historically, has always been like, we're okay taking children. We're okay being not the teenage kind of older people thing. So with the Switch, this has definitely been kind of a shift in their marketing campaigns. The Wii was meant for everybody, kids, adults.
Yes, definitely.
The Switch, I think, because so many people in our generation grew up with Nintendos, it's a part of our societal fabric and how we feel about it.
It's part of our terminology.
It's in the vernacular, because like, as I was saying earlier, it's like people used to call video games Nintendos just because that was just how it was. I mean, like,
did you get that new Nintendo this week?
Like if you watch Clerks, it says we have Nintendos, and that just meant games of all types, and so that's just a part of the vernacular. And so Nintendo has that historical established role, and they're a big enough and powerful enough company that even if this fails, they could still probably push out another console and potentially recover. But
you think so? Even after the Wii U?
Well, you got to think that like Nintendo, they have enough money saved up that they can lose $180 million for 100 years in a row. So yeah, so they have a lot of fucking money. Because I mean, if you think about it, like Nintendo from 1985 to 1990, they controlled 90% of the American video game market.
Oh, yeah.
And that was over $4 billion a year they were raking in for free with little to no effort or advertising. So their overhead costs were nothing because no one could even compete with them on the same level as how much money they were making.
Right.
And they also controlled 80% of the Japanese market at that time too, which the Japanese were voracious video game consumers at that point in time. So Nintendo has enormous war chests for what they can hold out. They can last a siege for a long time.
Okay. Yeah.
So I wouldn't be concerned about Nintendo pulling out because they're like, oh, we can't compete with these other big companies anymore. No, Nintendo, historically, they've never directly competed with their competitors.
True.
The last time, like, one of their video game systems... Okay, so the Super Nintendo was better than the Genesis as far as power potential.
Okay.
Like, what the color output it had. I mean, the Genesis had add-ons that made it graphically more powerful, blah, 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 but no one really bought those at the time. But then you move on to the 64, which was a step above the PlayStation. And then the last time... so the GameCube, when it came out, it had graphical superiority to like the PS2, had things that could beat the PS2 on even.
Yeah, definitely.
But the Wii didn't. It was graphically a step behind, considerably behind the 360 or PS3.
Definitely.
Only 480p. And they still just trashed them because they decided that instead of going head-to-head with their opponents with the most advanced tech, the most expensive things, Nintendo decided that we'll make systems that have established technology that we can make for cheap, and sell these systems at a profit as opposed to a loss like our competitors do.
Right.
Because competitors in the market ever since the early 90s have believed in like the razors and razor blade theory of marketing, where you make the money by selling the razors, not the razor blade itself, you know?
Oh, okay,
So you sell the games, you make the money off the games, not the systems. So that's how they've kind of built their marketing strategy, where Nintendo has always been more fastidious and greedy in the sense that they've dominated all of their publisher contracts for a long time. And that's why a lot of publishers were really pissed about the N64 being a cartridge system, because cartridges were so expensive. Because they would lose $10 off every cartridge they sold to Nintendo, because Nintendo controlled the gateway and the manufacturing.
Okay.
So Nintendo's always been rather skeevious in what they would do in these things. So the Switch gives them another new opportunity where they're going to try and create a new niche market and be relatively innovative in what they're pushing forward with. So Nintendo is all about selling that experience.
Right.
So that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, and I mean they're bringing back the cartridge in a way, even though the Vita totally had it.
Well, let's think about this. Like, okay, so currently a DVD holds 7 to 8 gigs of data.
Right.
A Blu-ray
50
gigs, but with a cartridge, you can now, based on how fast technology is, you can put 128 gigs on something like that. So there's literally no drawback to going back to a freaking physical media like that. And also...
Plus loading time, right?
Loading time, yeah, well, yeah. You can access that faster because you're not going through an optical input versus a flash input. But also, something I should probably bring up is that Nintendo, for their entirety, has always hated piracy. So they've always done stuff in their systems with the cartridges.
They hate getting their booty stolen.
Yeah, they hate it. Yeah, they freaking hate it. Because I mean, like,
put a little eye patch on me.
Nintendo hates that. But so Nintendo has always hated piracy. So by them having access to a physical media that people would have to manufacture, it gives them the ability to lock out people at another level. Mm-hmm. Where that's one of the reasons they went with the GameCube and making the dumb mini discs, was because they were harder to freaking fabricate for people because they weren't readily available. So that made it harder for people to burn these things, and that made the GameCube a lot harder to pirate on. Mm-hmm. So Nintendo's always been about controlling that gateway into their game systems. And other companies like Sega got totally screwed over on the Dreamcast because pirates figured out how to break that system.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that they got totally boned on that one. So by bringing back a physical media, it's going to make it really easy for them to control that. I mean, like, they can do really dumb things like make a flash drive that has, like, what they did with the Nintendo Disk System was how literally the copyright protection on that was an analog thing where the disc had Nintendo imprinted on the disc. You put it in the floppy drive on that, and then the disk drive had a Nintendo inverse that would click into the disc like that would lock it into place. So it was a physical lockout that they had like that. So Nintendo, I think they probably want to do that just because it gives them that ability to kind of block people out of it more.
Definitely. So let's talk briefly about their online. It's a little confusing right now. They're giving it away for free at first and then making us pay for it later. But I think a lot of that, a lot of blah, 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 a lot of reasons that it's getting a little bit of flack is that you have to get an app on your phone to do like messaging and invites and stuff like that. I mean, what's your overall thought of that?
You know, I haven't played online in a console in a long time, so that doesn't really impact me. And I'm just intrigued with the sense that the Wii, they've been pushing it as this kind of like take it and play as you go kind of thing, where you can go to these parties and stuff like that. So
Karen bringing it to the party.
Yeah, Karen bringing the party. Yeah. So what I'm wondering is, so like if it has like Bluetooth connection between Switch systems, you could do it. But I probably not. I have no idea.
I don't know. Like, do you connect via internet so they both have to have your phone has to have 4G or that, or does it have to be a Wi-Fi? That's a good point.
If it's linked to your smartphone, I guess it could be over your Wi-Fi as well. But as far as what they're doing that way, it's not. It's kind of industry standard in the sense that Sony, for a really long time, their online market was free. You could just connect to it and play online without paying anything.
Right.
But Xbox Live has always been, you got to pay that $9 a month or $59 a year or whatever to access their online content to play with that. You even had to pay that to access Netflix through an Xbox for the longest time.
I hated that.
Yeah, so that always made no sense. But then Sony, in an example of being just, because I mean, like typically when a company does that, you want to favor the one that you're like, hey, this is the right thing to do because PC games are free to play online without having to pay an access fee. But Sony going, our competitor's doing it, why don't we do it?
Yeah, right.
So Nintendo, because Nintendo, even though Nintendo's a pretty wealthy company, they're still not as big as Sony and they're still not as big as Microsoft. So I'm not surprised they're going to make their online stuff a pay-to-play fee because all the other major competitors are doing it.
Right.
And it's not like they're alienating anyone who is like, oh, I got to have this for free. No, it's an established precedent in the industry, and they're just going to follow it. So it's not like Nintendo's done a lot of douchey things in the past, but this is probably the least douchey thing they've done, considering they're just emulating what others have done.
Right. So then, what about the fact that, I mean, first off, what are you going to play online if they don't have third-party support, which is going to be a huge, draw? I mean, if they don't have the third, so they don't have third-party. Not only that, but I don't know what the extent of the app is going to be. So let's say once you do have to start paying for it, if you have to start paying for, like getting into a party with somebody and like that's their online features, everything that you get on the phone, like I don't think that's going to make a lot of people happy.
Well, see, I mean, I think there's as odd as it's going to sound, I think there's potential innovation for what they can do with a phone because what the Wii U had was you had a screen there in your lap while you were playing. The Switch, if you're at home, the Switch is going to be plugged into your docking station. You're going to be sitting on the couch with a controller. So by having an app, it's going to make your ease of access of some of these programs and things like that easier because you can just do it from your screen as opposed to having to torture yourself trying to type in a 20-character username with XXX Sniper 420, whatever, to get through to it. So I'm not necessarily like I wouldn't judge that ahead of time. I think it might make it potentially irritating for maybe younger people who might just want to play that online stuff without having to deal with friend invites via their phone. Yeah. But I think the longer the system goes, they're going to figure out ways to streamline their systems with it just to maximize what the potential is. But I think it's a potential new innovation for Nintendo for what they're probably going to try and push with that. And also the fact that Nintendo's pushing out new mobile games and things like that for phones. So it puts them on your phone more. So like a lot of people have Pokemon Go on their phone. Even though that was made by different companies, still Nintendo was involved slightly. Right. So it'll bring.
They pretty much said yes, you can use it.
So anyone who has a Switch, they're going to immediately bring them onto your smartphone, which is going to open up even more potential user bases for that, or at least people that might potentially buy Nintendo mobile products because they might advertise or cross-promote. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't.
True.
But so it brings that open, so there's a lot of potential for what they can do, or even bring the cell phone via the app into other apps if people want it, or bring the cell phone via the app into games and things like that. So like you probably have. I'm completely spitballing here because I think it's fun. Yeah. But let's say like Nintendo does a murder mystery thing where like the game calls your phone.
No.
So I mean so there's a lot of really fun potential things they could do with that, like the calls come from in the house. I think that'd be really fun. I doubt anyone's going to do that, but I think that'd be a really fun thing.
That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, so they could do really like even like a mystery game where you have to use your phone and call people in the game with your phone or something along that way through the app. So there's a lot of potential for what they could do. But then again, I think Nintendo's selling an experience. So they're going to try and potentially be more innovative than their competitors because they have this new approach to what they're looking at doing.
Definitely. All right. Well, yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. Let us know if you're going to be getting it on day one, and obviously if you do, let us know how you think about it. Let us know what you think about the Nintendo Switch in general in the comments below. Up next, we're going to be talking about our favorite Nintendo games of all time. So for our last segment today, during our dog talk, we're going to be talking about our favorite Nintendo games of all time, and why. So let's start with you. I guess go with your second favorite, so we can save the best for last.
Oh no. Okay.
Oh crap! Now I have to think.
Okay, so for me, my fondest memories of Nintendo games all come from the NES and then the Nintendo 64. So like some of my fondest memories as a kid were with Duck Hunt. Because that game just captivated the hell out of me when I was little. Just because, like, freaking, as a little kid, the game was hella hard because you just weren't good at anything as a kid.
Right.
Like, you thought you were good at stuff, but you really weren't. So, like, that game was always just the right level of challenging to a child. Mm-hmm. Now I can just ace that crap when I get bored. But back then, it was like, oh, this is so hard. You're, like, getting close to the TV and trying to shoot it. So that's one of my all-time favorite Nintendo games as far as just how crazy and cool that was when I was younger and playing that.
Did you ever get good enough where it was just like you got every single duck and
no, when I was a kid, no, I was terrible.
That damn dog's always laughing at you.
I think I'd have a few good runs, but as a kid, you'd panic. You'd totally panic. You're like, oh no, I got 3 bullets, I'm gonna miss them. Oh god, and you get the 2 ducks going at once, and that was good stuff.
Alright, so then one of my favorites of all time would have to be Spider-Man. Was it like Paint the Town Red or something? Is the one with like Carnage, so you could play as either Spider-Man or
Maximum Carnage.
Maximum, yeah. Thank you. So yeah, you could either play it as Spider-Man or as Venom, mm-hmm. And so that was really cool. And even though like it wasn't like open world, you could still like swing around the stages. Mm-hmm. I mean, you didn't go that far up or anything, but it was just kind of cool, and it was like one of the very first times I actually felt like a superhero.
So this was, you played it on the Super Nintendo then?
Yes.
Yes, because I had it on Sega.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't just exclusive, but yeah, I totally get it. It was a really fun experience because if you didn't have a 6 button, you had 2 more button or 1 more button and 6 more buttons than a Sega player initially. No, but I had a turbo controller when I played that one.
Oh yeah.
So it was like the punch button, just like spamming the crap out of the punch.
I always remember I'd get him on the edge of the screen, so I'd just keep going and just wait for the health bar to go away. My favorite thing was those girls that just like whip their hair out.
Oh god, yeah.
I whip my hair back and forth. I whip my hair back and forth.
Yeah, that was like, as far as like what that game had, like how it had like the full blown comic panels that would pop up. It was mm-hmm. It was beautiful for the time. Like what they were pushing the systems to like. And I mean, like
levels. The first game that they had, it looked fine for Spider-Man or whatever. But then that came out, and yeah, they just added a little bit more detail. Like his muscles, you could mm-hmm. see they were a little bit more defined, mm-hmm. and then the fact that you could play as Venom, that was just awesome. Being able to play as Venom because it was pretty much just. The bulkier version of Spider-Man, but like Venom was always my favorite from the cartoon because mm-hmm. it was back in the days when we had that 90s Spider-Man. Yes, I got my Venom right there. But yeah, so like that was my favorite character. The black suit Spider-Man leading into Venom was always my favorite story arc of mm-hmm. Spider-Man, just of all time. And so then actually being able to play as Venom was just like a dream come true mm-hmm. at that point in time. So,
God, I swear there was I think there was actually a cooperative one on Super Nintendo you could play where both Spider-Man and Venom could play at the same time.
Yeah, I think so.
Was that on the Super Nintendo version of Maximum Carnage, or was that a different
think so.
one? Because I know on the Sega one it was a single player, but I think there might have been another one. But yeah, that was always a solid-ass title as far as what you could do with that one.
Alright, so your most favorite then?
Most favorite, okay, so uniquely to Nintendo, even though this game was made by Rare, but back in the day, Rare was in Nintendo's pocket pretty hard. So GoldenEye 007 on the N64.
Oh, yeah!
That game, like, even though I've been a PC gamer for a really, really long time, I hadn't really quite experienced 3D graphics and shooting like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that game came out, and the new Half-Life that came out later. So games were definitely similar, but it was kind of one of those things where, like, Quake came out before it, but Quake was one of those things where you had to, like, load the PC up. It took a little longer to get the game going, at least on my crappy PC when I was a kid. So that was always awesome, but to have it just there on a console, and then to have immediate just 4-player freaking multiplayer you could do just immediately right out of the box if you had controllers. Like, I just remember doing sleepovers with that game. Like, my friends would bring their controllers because like, well, they were good, but then you just beat the crap out of each other all night in that game. Just God, that's just like what's one of my fondest memories of the N64 is just playing GoldenEye. Even though people are like, Perfect Dark's better, and I'm like, whatever, man. Freaking GoldenEye invented the genre on the console system.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, see, nowadays, do you have to have your controller inverted? Because they started inverted, and like I feel like that's a lot of people who still play inverted. It was because it's like that was one of their first shooters, and so like that just got ingrained in their brain.
Even like a lot of really PC games were inverted as well. So that like I know some older PC gamers that they still play inverted, and they're breaking their brains because some of the newer FPSs released by EA have been like, what's the word for like they've been dumbing it down to the point where like. They're like, oh no, it's got to appeal to everybody, so they like remove inverted controls and stuff like that. So these people are like, no, what do I do? My brain's broken. So
it's just running around. It's like,
so that was kind of an older standard, yeah. But holy crap, because GoldenEye was just such a good title when I was a kid, and just like how many times I must have replayed that game like 1,000 times when I was younger, just because I loved it so much. And like one of my fondest memories is going into the freaking depot level where like there's all the guns just everywhere. I was like, yes.
Yeah, especially like back then, it's like they had like maybe a couple of weapons that you could equip. So yeah, seeing them all right in front of you is kind of cool. So let's see, my favorite of all time has to be. It's kind of a toss up. But I'm gonna have to go with Resident Evil 4. Originally came out, so technically it's not an exclusive, but it started off on the GameCube, and honestly that's where it looked the best. If you don't obviously count the remakes and or remasters and yada yada. But not only did it take Resident Evil in a completely new direction, and it was more actiony, but I feel like people were okay with it at the time. Not a lot of people were okay with it later, but
yeah, because like something a lot of survival horror games used to do was they intentionally made the controls more tanky, so that the potential for you to panic in a situation because you couldn't move as effectively as you wanted made the game that much more challenging, and you invested that much more of your attention and just your heart into it. So you had to work harder. So like even. Oh my god, what's the new one where you're like on a spaceship and stuff gets infected and you have to like fight your way out, and that was a big one released.
Dead Space?
Dead Space, yeah. So that one, the controls were a little tanky in that one too, because they want you to panic.
Right.
Like they want that feeling to happen. So Resident Evil 4 did a really good job of that. And not to mention like the GameCube, when it came out, it had really good graphical abilities. And so there's good stuff. And like even Sega was porting stuff over to it because they were excited to work on it after the Dreamcast died.
Yeah, I think especially at the time, it was one of the most gorgeous games out, and I mean they did everything so well, and even the cheesy campiness like you forgave just because like the story was so interesting. And I mean I do feel like even though the original 3 they had good stories for the most part, I feel like this is one of the very first ones that really dug deep for me at least, and so I felt a lot more. I just felt a lot more invested in the characters and everything.
Well, yeah, just going from like Resident Evil 1 to Resident Evil 2 was a massive step forward in terms of like you're a Jill sandwich or whatever all that crap was. So I mean, there were drastic improvements just from like 1 to 2. So like 2 to 3, and then you had like Code Veronica and all those ones, even ones on the Dreamcast that were pretty decent. So yeah, that one definitely, as far as especially on the GameCube, but like what really kind of like deterred me from getting a GameCube was the fact that it felt like a kiddie system.
Yeah.
And so that was like one of the first games that, like, at least there may have been other ones, but that was like the first more adult game they released on it. Where I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
definitely.
maybe I actually might get a GameCube to play that.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And it definitely would have been worth the system buy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But my runner-up would have to be Turtles in Time.
Oh
So-
yeah, that's hella good.
But I think that came out on the arcade first, so that's why I went with Resident Evil.
Or you had was a Hyperstone Heist on the Genesis, which was similar,
Oh yeah,
but also phenomenal.
yeah, really, really, really good. I think that was like one of my quintessential Super Nintendo games was, playing Turtles in Time just over and over and over and over again. And then like when they remade it and they didn't allow you to throw people into the camera, I'm like, this isn't even the same.
You're talking the one on Xbox Arcade?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was kind of, I don't know, I always said it was kind of fun to play with people online, but it always felt like that game, like the colors were a little shifted, so it was easier to get
it's
lost
like your
when playing.
tint was off. Yeah.
So it's easier to get lost in the pack of turtles beating up foot soldiers. Like, crap, which one am I now?
You always do that. I always just like jumped around the screen, especially for bosses, because then anytime they would attack me, like I had a 50-50 chance of not getting hit, because I'm just like, So that's our favorite Nintendo games of all time. What are yours? Pick something obscure, because if you pick Mario, that's just too obvious. But let us know in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today, Ian.
Yep.
Because I do that with everybody else.
Yeah.
But make sure to like us and subscribe to Deadly Operative Grunts and Twitter at Deadly Op Grunts. That's it for us today at the Deadly Operative Grunts show, and we're feeling squirrely.
Triple threat.